Began her career in the St. Johns County Election Office in March 1988, and she served as the assistant supervisor for 23 years. She was appointed supervisor of elections by Governor Rick Scott in 2011, and in 2012, she was elected to serve as supervisor of elections. She's fully committed to conducting safe, secure, and accurate elections for St. Johns County, and we're delighted to have you here with us today and look forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you. It is good to be with you all this morning. I've had a busy morning. I just came from the Board of County Commissioners and School Board joint meeting they had this morning to talk with them about redistricting. That's a big program that's going to happen hopefully this year and into next year, because it does affect our upcoming 2022 elections. And I'll share with you what I just shared with them. COVID has changed everything, all of our lives. That included the US Census. And since redistricting is based on population numbers, you can't really do anything until you have numbers. And we've learned recently that it looks like it's going to be August at the earliest before we receive any population numbers at all from the Census Bureau. So we're still hoping. Our Board of County Commissioners and School Board is charged with redrawing their own district lines. We're still hopeful that we will have everything in place, so they'll be able to move forward with public hearings and the actions necessary that their boards will need to take in order to redistrict and complete the process by the end of the year. They are required to do it in an odd number year, which means they would do it this year. Or if not, then they would have to wait until 2023. That may also affect our state legislature, because they are charged with redrawing our congressional, Florida Senate, and Florida House lines. And normally we receive the information in March, and they have the entire year to go through the process, hold public hearings all over the state. And in early session, January through March of next year, is when they would actually adopt the new districts. I do not know, with the late release of the figures, how that's going to affect redistricting on the state level. That will remain to be seen. So it's funny that I speak with the boards about the process, because I have been involved in the redistricting process the last 3 times our office has. We worked with a liaison between the 2 boards and asked that they continue to have the same and share the same district lines they have since about the 1980s in St. Johns County. And if you're in Duval or other counties, your county will also be going through this process. It happens every 10 years. So I say, if you don't like your representatives, and you don't like your districts, hold tight. They are going to change. When that'll be will remain to be seen. But the reason that I get involved in that is because the district lines actually end up with my office. All of the voters are affected by your congressional district, your Florida House and Senate lines, and other district lines that affect you. That's actually the races that appear on your ballot. And once the redistricting is completed, the new district lines are in place, all that ends up at my office. We have to reconfigure both our voter registration and tabulation systems to comply with the new districts ahead of June 2022, which is candidate qualifying for next year's elections. It's funny, we're already planning for that. So So that's kind of what we've been doing. And that'll be going on in other places and other counties as well. So I just want to say that in St. Johns County, we had a great election in November. Uh, St. Johns County, I am very happy to say, was third highest in the state with regard to voter turnout. We had 85% voter turnout, third highest in the state. So I'm very pleased about that. We employed about 500 poll workers that worked during early voting and during the election day. It took a lot of hands. It took a lot of extra hands. We have a lot of very experienced longtime poll workers, but because of COVID, our elections were also affected, and a lot of them were not able to work. But we were very grateful. Many people in our community stepped up and said, we'll train, we'll be glad to help you with that. We had so many people volunteer, and I know other counties did as well, that we had to turn people away and say, thank you, we have more than what we need. I think that's the first time that's ever happened in our history. But we had a great election. I'm very pleased with the turnout. I have a great team here at the elections office. There's 12 of us that are full-time. We grow to a staff of about 525 in order to roll out a successful election. And my team did well. This was the best election that we've had in quite some time. Part of that was due to the fact that vote by mail requests were up, and about 33% of our voters voted by mail. We had about 52% vote early, which really means only about 15% of our voters turned out and went to their polling place on election day, which gave us a smooth election day with our vote by mail. It was very, very popular this year. Our normal percentage of vote by mail is about 20%, and that's very steady and has been over many years and many elections. But we saw that up due to COVID. We saw that being very high. Although not as high as I would have expected, we mailed out about 75,000 vote by mail ballots, and only about 58,000 voters actually voted and returned them. Some of our voters just decided at the last minute that they would actually go vote in person, and that was fine. I think vote by mail is going to be very, very viable for the future, of course. And what I'm happy to say is Florida really, because of the way we handle our elections, we are allowed to open and count our vote by mail ballots in advance. Once early voting closes down, we retain those results. They're brought back here to our office, and then they are on election day uploaded to our system so that both the vote by mail results and the early voting results are already ready and able to be released very, very shortly, right after the polls close. That's been our process. There was a time in the state of Florida that it was 7 p.m., but that was back in the 80s. Fortunately, our laws have changed over the years. And really, I think for the better. We've gone from very tight restrictions for having to request a vote by mail, from letting the elections office know when you need a vote by mail ballot. Then we have to send you an affidavit, and you have to fill it out, tell us why you want to vote by mail, have it notarized and returned to us. before you can receive a vote by mail ballot. My, hasn't that changed? Yes, it has. And a voter can, if they need to vote by mail, Florida's a no excuse state. So all you have to do is ask. But I'm very happy about our law that the ballots are upon request, because cost is a very high factor when it comes to vote by mail ballots. Those 20 something thousand voters that didn't make use of those vote by mail ballots and decided that they wanted to vote in person, the cost of that is 3 times the amount of what a regular voter costs to cast a ballot. So cost is a factor in voting by mail. St. Johns County received about $300,000 in COVID funding for the August and November elections. We paid the return postage. I made that decision to do that and use our COVID funds for that. But with the cost incurred in the county, that's probably not going to happen moving forward. But one thing that we saw was so many people, so many of our voters loved our vote by mail drop boxes and made use of them. We had 28,000 of our voters that returned their ballots that way. So vote by mail, definitely viable moving forward. Our early voting turnout was phenomenal. We had over 93,000 people in St. Johns County make use and go vote early. We had 10 locations. That was really a stretch for us and my staff, but we had 10 locations that were open for 13 days, 93,000. I would really like to see an expansion of early voting in that we don't close it down on Saturday and then have to turn around, bring in all the equipment back, and then on Monday have to turn out and send all of our voting equipment out for election day to set up for the polls. I'd like to see us just be able to continue voting on Sunday, voting on Monday and election day, and make a few more facilities available. That would have to be a change in the law, but some states do that. They're called voting centers. So I don't know if that would be a viable. We're having some discussion on it. And that would be a way that we could improve accessibility for our voters. Now, I'm trying to, off the top of my head, think of some of the questions that were sent to me. Some of them were with regard to the voting by mail. It's very simple. We have tools on our website that allow any voter to go into their record and look and see that their vote by mail ballot has been counted. A lot of people are not aware of that, and every county has that available. You just simply go to the elections office website. On St. Johns County's, ours is called My Voter Status. You click on that, and I know y'all are good voters, so you're probably familiar with that. You type in your information and you pull your voter record, and you can track your vote by mail ballot. Actually, when you receive your vote by mail ballot envelope, it says right on the envelope, you can track your vote by mail ballot and tells you how to do that. So one thing that kind of discouraged me a bit back during the November election was because of the fact that it was a national election, people would hear things. For example, we had a time where it came out in the news that Pennsylvania wasn't going to count their vote by mail ballots if you didn't return your secrecy sleeve. So all they heard, or all people heard, was if you don't return your secrecy sleeve in your vote by mail ballot, it's not going to count, and people panicked. And they started calling our office. And that's just one example. What I would say to you, I wanted to tell some people they needed to turn off their televisions, but there are reliable sources. Your elections office, where you can receive a lot reliable information that pertains to your state. And like I said, that was a problem because you'd hear this was going on or that was going on. And I used the example in Pennsylvania. It had nothing to do with Florida law or Florida's voting by mail ballots. People believe everything they read on Facebook and they share it without verifying it. That was driving me crazy. I would say to anyone, please, for election information, use reliable sources. Don't just believe everything that you hear on the news or see on Facebook, and please don't share it unless it comes from a reliable source. There was so much misinformation being shared around, and tools available on our website that if you just go there or pick up the phone and call your elections office, that will answer your questions for you. So that was one thing that I wanted to say. Please be sure to use a reliable source.
We do have some other questions coming in the chat, Miss Oaks, if this is a good time to.
Yeah, I was just looking at that because I pulled the chat box
Okay,
up.
great.
Let's see, perhaps we can ask for an amendment to a current election bill. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Which election bill? There's a number of them out there. Okay, so, and I do see a super voting site is actually the same thing. If you think about it, like early voting, it's the same thing as an early voting site. For the super voting sites, I will tell you they have been used in the Panhandle area since 2018. If you will remember, there was a terrible hurricane that went through the Panhandle area. Bay County, there were 5 counties that were affected, that their polling places were literally wiped off the face of the earth. And they had very few polling places left. So they instituted, it was like early voting. They just had a number of sites. Once you start voting, you continue voting through election day. You can go any place, just like with early voting. And that's another thing I like about early voting and the concept of the super voting sites is there's no wrong place to go. You can actually, as long as you're in your county, you can vote anywhere. So that's what we mean the term super voting sites. It's kind of like just an expanded early voting site. And early voting is becoming more and more popular. Voting by mail is becoming more and more popular. We realize that COVID did affect a lot of things, but we've seen in past elections that the trends are changing in voting even before COVID. People were going to vote when it was convenient for them because we have early voting even on Saturdays and Sundays. And so you pick a time and a location that's convenient for you and you can go vote. And I like that. I like that we have a lot of opportunities as voters in Florida, unless you've lived other places, you don't realize there are some states are very restrictive on their vote by mail. Some states don't have early voting at all. And then there are other states like Washington and Oregon that are completely vote by mail states, and they do not open early voting or open precincts on election day. And do I see Florida go to that? No, I don't. because people like to vote in person. And I'll call it political noise that was happening during the election. Part of it was the information on the post office, how everybody was so afraid that their ballots were not going to be able to be returned in time for voting by mail. There was distrust in the post office. There was a lot of noise there, but I'll tell you what it caused with this election, and I think it was a good thing. We saw more ballots voted and returned early. We could count them early. And that's why I think that the trend with voting by mail, it's going to continue, because with early voting and with voting by mail, people know even if they have to go to one of our early voting sites and use our vote by mail drop boxes, they were willing to do so. And that's an option too. And as far as improving voting by mail, I kind of like the way Florida does it. There was a time that you used to have one or two witnesses on your ballot envelope when you signed it. And those have been removed over the years. You're not required to have a witness it. But if you think about it, Florida does have voter ID laws. We've had them since the 80s. So if you vote in person, you have to show your photo and signature ID. So think about it, that voting by mail, the signature on your envelope is your identification. And that allows us to confirm the fact that that is indeed your ballot and that you have cast that ballot. And then if there's a problem for some reason that your signature does not match, all supervisors are required by law to reach out to the individual and allow that voter an opportunity to cure their ballot and to still have it count.
There's a few other questions that came in directly to me. I'm not sure they're showing in your feed. There's a compliment, first of all, from someone who lives in St. Johns County. Mary said, your poll workers were great, knowledgeable, and courteous. Kudos. There's another question about whether other states have requested to model the Florida system. Do y'all get together nationally and talk about things like that?
I do belong to a National Association of Election Officials. However, it's states' rights. States are allowed to set their own laws. And I am very, very happy that our elections in not only St. Johns County, but in Florida went well this year, and that we actually kind of overcame the bad press we had received previously in several years, but that Florida is indeed a model to show the nation you don't have to wait for weeks to be able to find out your election results.
Right.
It is as simple as change, but that's up to our state legislators, you
Right.
see, and election supervisors can work with our state representatives, which we do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how we ended up working through and with the process. So hopefully some states will learn from us. It's simply a matter of them changing their laws to allow them to start opening and counting their ballots earlier so
Okay.
that those results are available election night.
Thank you. Sandra asks, who is it that develops the ballot format and reviews and approves that?
On a county level, it's each and every county. There is Florida statutes and a uniform ballot rule that pretty much sets the standards, how things have to be. And then each supervisor is responsible for our own voting systems and our own ballot layouts
Okay.
and actually what the voters see. And you all know St. Johns County this year, we transitioned to the bilingual ballots, and we'll be doing that from now on.
Okay. Another question from Susan is whether you're aware of any pending legislation in Florida that would restrict early voting or vote by mail or make it more difficult to vote other than on election day.
There's a couple of bills out there. I don't believe any that are restrictive. There's been some bills filed that I honestly, I just haven't had an opportunity to even look at. I think given the fact that Florida did such a great job and has now set the standards, I almost wish they would leave it alone, please. Just,
If it's not broken, don't fix it.
well, are there always improvements that can be made? Yes. We have improved monumentally over the last few years. I've been in the office since 1988, and voter registration. I mean, think about it. In 2017, Florida went online with voter registration. You can register at DMV. You can register at your local public library, any agency. You can register online. Voter registration is very simple. And I would have a concern about same-day registration. That's not something I would ever support because my main concern would be voter fraud. Our system that we have in place right now, we have a verification process that you are verified with the driver's license or with Social Security that you are indeed an individual, and Mickey Mouse can't register to vote anymore. And we have a very, very good system in process. And, everybody's got a phone. You can literally, if you have a Florida driver's license, you can register to vote right on the phone or just call us. Applications are available. There's third-party registration organizations out there registering people all the time. As far as automatic registration, I wouldn't support that either because that would think about how many people we have on our voter rolls now that don't vote.
Right.
That would really inflate our voter rolls. It's going to increase the cost of elections. And I would be concerned about voter fraud too.
Thank you. I see one more question that came directly to me, and that is whether the use of a super center would require legislative approval. So I guess, is that a county by county decision or?
Yes, it would require legislative approval. Right now, it's not in the law that we could do that. So it would require legislative approval, and it would depend on how the legislation is written. For example, we've learned as election administrators, and I'll just tell you, I belong to an organization, all 67 county supervisors of elections, and we are elections professionals. We work with our legislatures, but what you have to understand, and if you all live in Florida, you should know this, we're a very diverse state. We have counties in Florida that have less than 4,000 registered voters. And we have 3 counties in Florida that have over 1 million registered voters. And then you have counties like ours, which I have getting close to 215,000 registered voters. And then you have large counties like Duval Well, one size does not fit all. And what works in a county with 4,000 registered voters is not going to work in my county. And what works in my county is not going to work in a county with over 1 million registered voters. So one thing, we finally been able to get that through to our state legislatures. So for example, the current law with early voting is that it's up to the election supervisor to set the hours, times, and locations for early voting. So COVID was a stretch for us in St. Johns County. Like I said, we had 10 early voting locations this year. That's up to me to set because I know what's best for my county. What Duval County does is very different, and what Nassau County does is very different. So we're starting to see a little bit of flexibility in the law, and I really like that. And I appreciate that our legislators are giving election supervisors some flexibility to make the best decisions for their counties.
Makes sense. There's another question about how people have recently moved, students, those that are homeless. How do they get to vote if their address differs from license or ID? What are some of the mechanisms for that?
Okay, well, the great system we have, and you may or may not have heard about the Florida Voter Registration System, we call it FVRS. That system allows for a person to make an address change anytime. That even and especially includes moving from one county to another. I remember the days that you used to have to, when you crossed county lines, you used to have to re-register to vote by the book closing date in that county to be eligible to register there. But now it's as simple as picking up the phone, going to your polling place on election day, your correct one, giving the operator on the phone at my office your new address. If you are a conscientious voter, you can call us ahead of time, give us your information. We'll make that address change over the phone for you and direct you to your correct election day polling place the first time. Works very well. And we have some great tools on our website too that will direct people to their correct polling place if they'll just take the time and go there. As far as homeless people, they register where they get their mail, and they are allowed to vote using that address.
Okay. And what about students? Should students vote at their permanent address? Or let's say you have a student that lives in Brevard County but attends Flagler. Where would they vote?
That question is absolutely up to the student because they want to, and we kind of caution them, have you checked with your mom and dad? Are they paying your tuition? It's all about the taxes because where are you maintaining your permanent residence? Is
Okay.
a permanent residency in Brevard County, or are you changing your permanent residence? That means you're getting your driver's license changed. That means you're getting your car registered changed. And in that case, it would be your voter registration as well. And they would simply vote by mail from Brevard County unless they're changing and living here permanently.
Thank
So
you.
it's up to the students.
Mm-hmm. That's great to know. And then Linnell has a specific question you can probably read in the chat at the bottom about prior felony convictions. And I think everyone can see that question, so I won't restate it.
Okay, so no, we do not validate that process. When anyone registers to vote, they fill out a voter registration application. One of the questions is, have you been convicted of a felony? Or if you have your rights been restored? They check the block. They're registered in the system. It really puts it back on the voter. That information goes to Tallahassee. Tallahassee is the one that actually does the research on that and notifies us if someone is, say, still on probation or parole. And in those cases, we would reach out to the voter and have to cancel their voter registration because under Amendment 4, they would not be eligible. No one is eligible to get their rights restored until their probation and parole has been completed. So there's very few circumstances. We don't vet anybody. That all that comes from the state at this time.
Thank you. There's another direct question, and this is particular to COVID. Prior to COVID, I think there were in many counties voter registration efforts in high school to get students registered so that when they turned 18, they were ready. In St. Johns County, how are y'all handling that? Did you do it before? Has that changed because of COVID?
Okay, yes, and we're required by law. That doesn't happen just in St. Johns County. It happens every county in Florida. We are continuing with those programs. My outreach coordinator is working right now with the high schools in order to try to accommodate them, whether we're going to do a Zoom meeting, a Zoom presentation, and then encourage the students to register to vote online, which they can do if they have their license, and we're going to provide some applications. So we're working with the high schools to work that out for this year. And as a part of our program, we also, my outreach coordinator, Tina, she also has, gives a plug for the students to become poll workers
Mm.
because we love to have them involved in the process. And we usually, I think we had about 20 students work with us this year. They like it that they get paid for it. They like to be part of the process. They get extra credit for schools. And one thing that we find is that sometimes they end up being longtime poll workers. And I would even encourage some of your League of Women Voters members, if you want to become really familiar with our processes, we're always looking for poll workers. So, so I would encourage you all to sign up to become part of our process. Hopefully by the time 2022 rolls around and we have another election, all our lives will have returned to normal,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully. So, so we do have quite an extensive voter education program in our schools, and that will continue this year in one form or another.
That's great. And what a brilliant idea to recruit the students to become poll workers. That's wonderful. I think we've got one last question about non-citizens. How are they flagged? Um, how do non-citizens get flagged? Are there systems where they can vote even if accidentally because they don't know they're ineligible? Or so how do y'all handle screening for that, making sure that voters are citizens?
Well, the truth of the matter is we have no resources at all whatsoever available to us as election supervisors in order to verify anyone's citizenship, period. And on the registration application, there is a block that says, are you a US citizen? If you check the block, I'm going to take your word for it because you swear to an oath
Right.
that you are. A handful of years ago, Florida tried to, actually, we asked the federal government for access to the alien database registration so we could try to vet our voters to verify that they were citizens. And we were told no. And the federal government, so we sued, and it was upheld all the way to the Supreme Court, and our request was denied.
Hmm. Interesting.
On that same subject, I will also tell you that there are states, Arizona and New Mexico, that have passed laws that require someone to show citizenship documentation when they register to vote. That has also, with both states, gone to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has said you cannot do that. That is unconstitutional to require that. So we're kind of stuck.
Okay.
Our hands are tied. I have no resources, and the federal government will not give us any.
So, okay, that's helpful to know. Linnell asked if you were aware whether the Secretary of State of Florida does any auditing or spot checks of voter registration for that.
No, because we have no resources to check.
Do that. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's one of those things that, over the years, our registration system has evolved and changed and gotten better.
Mhm.
What we would like, and the intention was our request to the alien database was to make that part of the verification process in the Florida voter registration system so we could. But unfortunately, that did not happen.
That's good to know. Well, I think that you've answered all of everyone's questions.
Okay, I was trying to remember off the top of my head. There were some vote by mail questions. I think I pretty well hit most of those. Talked about registration. I have a saying, and my saying is voting's never been easier than it is today. If people are interested in the elections process, it is very simple to register and participate in our elections. They can do so. And, do we have the perfect system? No, it probably doesn't exist, but we've come a long way. And like I said, I was happy that Florida came out as a model this year with our processes. I truly hope that some states will learn from us, that they will make changes to their systems so that so they don't have to wait for weeks and weeks after an election for results. But, that's really up to each state legislature, and I don't really have a say in that either. So,
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today, and thank you for all the great work you and your staff do to make the elections run so smoothly in St. Johns County.
thank you. And I hope I've covered most everything that it's kind of hard to read and talk at the same time, but I think I hit most anything. If you're local in St. Johns County and you're interested in becoming a poll worker, please reach out to me. I'm always glad to have more people. With redistricting going on next year and our phenomenal growth that we're having in St. Johns County, we're looking at adding 10 to 12 more precincts next year. So that means more voting equipment, more poll workers, more voting locations for election day. So I'm always looking for good poll workers. And I know other counties are as well, Duval and Nassau and Clay. So I encourage you all, please, be part of the process, learn more about it, and educate yourselves on it, which I'm preaching to the choir here. So.
Right. Well, thank you again. We really appreciate your spending time with us today and answering questions. And I'll put in a personal plug. I worked on the voter 411 guides, and I had to ask all of the counties for GIS information. And St. John's was fantastic at getting back quickly and having exactly what we needed to set those guides up.
Well, great. Thanks. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, they were great. All right. Well, I think with that, we will turn it over to Linnell, who's going to make some league announcements.
Hey, yeah, so I'm Linnell Philman, the president for the League of Women Voters. And for Supervisor Oaks, I just want to say thank you again for coming out and joining us. Some people are a little hesitant to join us on live events, so we appreciate that. And I don't know if others caught it, but the League US, the National League, actually hosted our Secretary of State, Secretary Lee, and really got an opportunity to talk about how voting went across the state of Florida and some lessons learned and some of the great things that were accomplished here. So thank you so much for joining us. Just some quick announcements. I know that many of you are already aware, so again, this would be preaching to the choir, but we are getting ready for the legislative session to start the first week of March. And as many of you know, a lot of things that actually are going to happen during the legislative session, the work is actually being done now where our representatives are in committee. So we would ask that everyone please be as engaged as you can. And some of this, most of this actually you can do from the safety of your own home. One, we would like for you to start paying attention to the Florida channel if you haven't already. You can watch the Capitol updates, you can watch different committees as they're occurring, but also you can start tracking bills. You can start tracking bills in the Florida House and the Florida Senate. You can see as they are referred to committee, and you also have an opportunity to start communicating with the chairs of the committee as well as the committee members and letting them know where you stand on certain bills and how you see those bills impacting you as an individual or your community, or how you see them impacting the state as a whole. So you can do that. The other thing we would like for you to do is go to our league's Florida website and actually subscribe to the Capitol Report. This allows you to hear what our president and our board feel about different bills, things where they want us to weigh in, but also to hear from our lobbyists, as well as from our lobby corps, where we might need to start putting our attention and some of our energy to address bills as they're moving through committee. The next slide, please. So I hope everyone knows by now that we have a new education committee chair, Susan Ertker, and she has really already started a lot of great work individually as well as with the committee, but she needs help. As always, the league is not one person, it's many of us. So as you see on the screen there, she is asking for some people to step forward to help monitor the Citizens Oversight Committee, but also different legislation that's taking place locally here in our own counties, as well as what's taking place at the state level. And as you see, Susan's email is there on your screen. And if you're not able to reach out to her, reach out to the league as a whole, and we'll put you in touch with Susan. They're doing some great work already. We'd love for you to be part of that. The Healthcare Committee. So Mary McLaughlin has been doing a great job with the Healthcare Committee. And as always, we could use more help. The House is in session. Everyone knows that Medicaid has been a touchy topic here in the state of Florida for many years. We think this year we may actually have an opportunity to make some progress here. And unfortunately, that's due to COVID. So much of our healthcare is really linked to our job and our healthcare coverage through employment. And as COVID has really impacted employment here, it's impacted health. So if anyone is interested in participating in our healthcare committee and doing some work with Mary and her team, please feel free to reach out to Mary. And again, her information is there on the screen. Her next committee meeting is coming up, is going to be at 6 p.m. on February 23rd, and it's via Zoom. So again, something you can do from the safety of your own home. Returning citizens. So Amendment 4 passed overwhelmingly here in the state of Florida, and then SB 7066 puts some restraints on our returning citizens or people with prior felony convictions being able to access the ballot box. So the league, we continue to do work. So right now we're looking for volunteers who must be league members who can help us do some texting and phone banking to reach out to returning citizens and follow up with them. But also we're looking for attorneys and people who work in the legal field who don't need to be members of the league, who are willing to attend some CLE training online. It's all virtual, and then sign up to help do some pro bono work or some research work for other lawyers in determining what fines and fees a returning citizen might have, and help us get some of their fines and fees converted over to community service if we're able to do that. So please reach out to us at our email address you see there, or you can go to the www.lwvfl.org/CLE/ and you could access the CLE training there for our lawyers and for our paralegals or those who want to do some research in the legal realm. And March Lunch and Learn, we're very excited. Elizabeth Anderson, who is the chair of the Duval County School Board, is going to be joining us. She's going to be talking about the half-cent sales tax and how that money can be spent and how we would like to see it spent. And that's going to be on March 3rd at 11:30. It'll be our March Lunch and Learn. And again, a Zoom link will be on our Facebook page, as well as going out via our newsletter and via email. So we hope that you'll come back in March and join us for that. And then we hope that you will actually engage here to help us do better for our schools. Please feel free to reach out to us. There's our website, our Facebook page, and our Instagram accounts. Please reach out to the league if you're interested in membership, or you're just interested in doing some volunteering, or if you have questions about bills, or there's some way that we might help you communicate with your elected representatives. We're happy to do that. We do believe in a more perfect democracy. That's not just here in our local counties, that's state and nationwide. And we're happy to help you engage and find a way to do that. So thank you for joining us. I know it's the middle of the day. It's beautiful outside. So we appreciate you taking time in the middle of your day to join us today. Thank you.